First they came for Fawlty Towers and I said nothing, because I wasn't Basil Fawlty.
Japanese, was it?
And then they came for the long-dead philanthropist and I didn't speak up, because I wasn't a slave trader. But then, the roulette wheel of pantomime outrage fell upon the last night of the Proms. And who was left to speak up? It was probably inevitable that Black Lives Matter would be reduced to mere cannon fodder for the culture wars.
Can't we be thrown a bone? Is that too much to ask for? Do we have to be bombarded with PC, anti-imperialist, anti-British propaganda 24/7?
No longer an international confrontation with the law being wielded as an instrument of torture and murder against black people, BLM is, at least for the purposes of daytime telly and talk radio, the mobilisation of the woke, coming for everything you hold dear. It fell to the Sunday Times to kick off the hue and cry, and the nation's broadcast media duly scampered off in pursuit.
Joining us now to discuss whether Land of Hope and Glory and Rule Britannia should be dropped.
At this stage in this country, anything that celebrates Britain's past, anything that we're proud of, is regarded to be either racist.
This is all part of the decolonisation of our major cultural events. Well, let's discuss whether this is a good idea or a bad idea.
And it didn't seem to matter to anybody that the central claim of the article, that nationalist anthems wouldn't be sung this year out of sensitivity to Black Lives Matter, wasn't supported by anyone who was willing to speak on the record. No anti-racist organisation, and certainly neither the US or the UK's iterations of Black Lives Matter, had actually demanded that the song should be dropped. What's more, the BBC itself has suggested that replacing Rule Britannia and Land of Hope and Glory with orchestral versions has nothing to do with the lyrics, but because coronavirus restrictions mean there can't be any big sing-alongs. But the Sunday Times' thoughtful juxtaposition between progressive-sounding buzzwords and, just the pictures of black people involved in curating this year's Proms was considered evidence enough. For/against pitched battles were staged on Good Morning Britain this morning and Jeremy Vine on 5. Columnists competed to file copy, and radio producers raced to secure pundits who'd be willing to confect an opinion for 35 quid and 10 minutes of airtime.
Of course, there were many regrettable aspects of that.
Not that I'm speaking from a position of lofty disdain for the grift. Being both cheap and available, I too have fielded requests from guest bookers who are keen to fill the role of censorious and/or ethnic lefty. I didn't, however, get much further than the pre-interview. It turns out that a talking head saying, "This story is a load of made-up nonsense and designed specifically to make your audience of retirees murderously furious," wasn't quite what they were after. The emphasis on culture wars in mainstream media is a problem of structure though, not staffing. Moral panics of the political correctness gone mad variety are nothing new, sure, but they've become all the more impactful in an era where both leading politicians and news outlets themselves take their cues from reactive social media engagement. With original news gathering and investigative budgets slashed across the sector, being able to dictate the national conversation through manufactured outrage is a more cost-effective alternative to breaking a big story. Legacy print and broadcast media are in a fight for their very survival. Generating reaction from both social media and the front benches are the metrics by which the value of a story is judged. And so, like a monstrous Greek god consuming its children, the media must birth the very takes upon which it will later feast. And never one to pass up an opportunity for empty posturing, Boris Johnson resurfaced to proclaim that
it's time we stopped our cringing embarrassment about our history, about our traditions, and about our culture, and we stop this general bout of self-recrimination and wetness.
But the government's willingness to fuel culture wars micro-events isn't just a means of drawing attention away from, say, a bungled pandemic response. There's a deeper strategy at play here as well. Nurturing a sense of grievance amongst those who disproportionately benefit from the status quo keeps those same demographics invested in its preservation. The Conservative electoral base, baby boomers, homeowners, retirees, have little stake in transforming the economy. And it's hard to maintain a sense of political insurgency to keep your base fired up and engaged when you've been in power for over a decade and you also enjoy a parliamentary majority of 80 seats. But whether it's Brexit or taking the knee or sing-alongs at the last night of the Proms, Johnson's Conservatives have cannily realised that their path to power relies on polarising once marginal issues, turning them into potent symbols of the nation under threat from despotic minorities. By defining political antagonism along the lines of culture, the right have kept focus away from socioeconomic and institutional inequalities. It doesn't matter that the Rule Britannia Brouhaha is nothing but a paranoid fantasy. By concocting such moral panics, those with little to gain from egalitarian change are galvanised by fear of what it is they stand to lose.